It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Mara Bullock. Mara is the Smart Mobility National Manager and Innovation Lead Transportation at WSP in Canada. Her professional experience spans a wide variety of roles, organizations, and project locations internationally. Mara holds a degree in civil engineering from Queen's, and I pulled actually a little snippet from her LinkedIn profile. Mara says she believes in smart mobility, that it involves the movement of people and goods through the application of technology, data analytics in a manner that balances safety, efficiency, comfort, sustainability, ability, inclusion, equity, and cost effectiveness. So Mara, I'd like to welcome you to the stage for your keynote presentation titled Smart Goods Mobility, Enablers and Opportunities. Thanks, Mara.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you for that introduction. And I want to thank CITM, Innovation Factory, Avon, and others for the opportunity to speak with you here today. I do apologize if you hear any noise in the background. We are in the middle of a renovation that unfortunately started yesterday as opposed to tomorrow. So a future with smart goods mobility is on the horizon. Planning tools such as connected and automated vehicle readiness and the Canadian ITS architecture are in place to help us prepare for that. Data visualization, data analytics, machine learning, and digital twins are a few of the other enablers for this future vision that are really going to help us get to where we need to go. And we know that that future is also going to include automated, connected, electric, and shared vehicles. I'll share some more information about these enablers today a little bit later in the conversation. But first, I just want to highlight that there are opportunities at all stages of the supply chain, from inbound transportation to last mile delivery, that are really exciting. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some of those technology options and opportunities with you here today. The pandemic has really revealed the fragility of the supply chain. Everyone that I speak to has been impacted in one way or another by delays or lack of availability of inventory. You just have to think back to some of the scares in the initial days to remember that. And all of that has been tied into the goods mobility supply chain. In reality today, I'd say that we have goods mobility. We don't have smart goods mobility, but we can definitely get there. This diagram that I've borrowed from Wärtsilä highlights some of these inefficiencies. For example, container ships spend about 25% of their time at berth. Imagine if that could be reduced. And we know that about 55% of the total cost of goods delivery is tied into warehousing, first and last mile, inter and intra-regional travel. And we know that there are major impacts from congestion, delay that impact those movements as well. So clearly there's all sorts of significant opportunities for the application of intelligence to create a future with smart goods mobility. So what is smart goods mobility? Chris, thank you for sharing this. I do really believe in this passionately. And a couple of years ago, I was doing some work and really looking to see if there was a definition of what smart mobility was that resonated with me. And I couldn't find one. So worked to create this one. And Chris read it to you earlier, but I'll share it with you again. So to me, smart mobility is about the movement of people and goods through the application of technology, data, and data analytics that looks to balance safety, efficiency, comfort, sustainability, ability, inclusion, equity, and cost. So to me, it's there's a lot that we're looking for from this future. Smart mobility is going to be very user-centric. This will definitely be applicable on the movement of people side of things, but I think that'll also come to play in smart goods mobility. Automated, connected, electric, and shared mobility is going to be a cornerstone of it. Curbside management, I think, is really going to come into play, both on the goods and people side, as we need to manage the efficiencies around the curb. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. There's a whole lot of pieces that are going to feed into this. And so it is really a very exciting time that we're in. So what does the future hold? I'm going to share some technologies that are at various levels of commercialization across the smart goods mobility supply chain, and give you a bit of a vision about what this future can hold. So from automated electric shipping and smart ports, to inter and intra-regional movements and curbside management, and to real-time operation applications that are going to provide visibility of the entire supply chain. I'll touch on a few of those examples today. The ones that I share are by no means the only ones. They're a small fraction of what is available in the market today at various levels of commercialization, but I really hope that they're going to give you a bit of food for thought and tweak your interest and appetite for learning more about this area. So automated electric shipping goes by a couple of different names. One of the definitions that seems to be more popular is maritime autonomous surface ships, or MAS. And these are crewless vessels that transport either containers or bulk cargo over navigable waters with little to no human interaction. So, for example, the Yara Birkeland is scheduled to make the first crewless autonomous journey between two Norwegian towns by the end of 2021. And it might have happened already. I didn't have a chance just to check into that before, but that's pretty exciting to have a completely autonomous journey undertaken. Blockchain technology is a technology that's also helping in the automated electric shipping area. So blockchain is a technology that provides a mechanism for one-stop shop. It ensures that data is shared between all pieces of the supply chain. So blockchain provides a secure private industry ledger that establishes a single immutable record. That's the key point. It can't be changed, or a single version of the digital truth that once entered can't be modified. Data sharing is something that has been a challenge in supply chain for decades. And so it's great to see that this technology is helping to break down some of those barriers. Smart ports. You may have heard in the news recently about the delays at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach that have resulted in them implementing a congestion charge for containers that haven't been picked up in a reasonable amount of time. This is really similar to congestion pricing schemes or demand pricing that have been implemented in progressive cities around the world as a way to manage congestion. So great to see that that's coming into the smart goods mobility space as well. These charges will apply to containers that wait 9 days or more to move from trucks out of the port, and 6 days or more to move by rail. So they start off at $100 a day. That escalates rapidly, and so if by day 7 the container hasn't moved, the charge could be $2,800. And I was reading this morning that they're already seeing that there's a positive effect to that congestion charge that has been applied. So maybe we'll start to see more of those demand pricing strategies come into play as well. Automated guided vehicles are automated electric vehicles. The picture's in the top right there. And they can move containers around ports autonomously, creating clean and efficient movement. So the batteries are sort of plug and play. When a battery has been used up, it's pulled out, another one's put in, and then that can be charged. And another smart port piece that I wanted just to share with you was a mobile app that's been around for a while at the Port of Montreal. So through this mobile app or through their real-time website, information about wait times at the Port of Montreal, as well as predictions for when the best time to go and pick up a load might be. By posting wait times on the terminal, road transport industry and truck drivers can better plan their routes to the terminal gates, and it also reduces congestion at the entrances, which is really beneficial for the surrounding road. So what they've seen since implementing this are savings in GHG emissions, which are tied to reductions in congestion and other benefits as well. And so they've saved about 11% of greenhouse gas emissions per ton of cargo between 2013 and 2015. So really significant savings. Interregional movements. So this is movement of goods between warehouses and centers, or between large centers, typically done by transport truck or rail. And there's a number of technologies that are coming into play in that space as well. So legislation was passed in Ontario in 2019 that allows the platooning of, or the pilot of platooning trucks. So that's the picture in the top right corner, on defined corridors within the provincial highway network. So platooning is when the lead truck is manually driven, and trucks that follow are connected electronically, and there's set following time gaps between the trucks. And those trucks essentially operate autonomously, although at this point in time, the legislation requires that there is a driver in the following trucks that can take over if necessary. So platooning offers great savings in terms of efficiencies, can also reduce the load on the drivers in the following trucks, which can create safer environments. In the bottom right, there's a picture of an autonomous transport truck. So that's pretty exciting as well, to have these transport trucks be able to operate autonomously. Aurora, that's the truck that's shown, was being tested in the summer of 2020 in California and Pennsylvania, with a focus on completing long-haul commercial trips. Automated trucks are going to be able to operate 24 hours a day. They can drive at a consistent mileage rate, and so it can make trucks safer and more fuel efficient. In addition, you've probably been hearing about sort of the global shortage of drivers. I heard that the Army was brought into the UK to help drive trucks because of the shortages. So bringing in automated vehicles could help with that shortage as well. History was made on June 14th, 2019. That's the picture in the bottom left corner, when Rio Tinto completed the transition to an entirely automated operation of its 1,500-kilometer railway in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. This became the first heavy haul railway in the world to operate an automated network. So clearly a lot of opportunities in the inter-regional movements. From an intra-regional movement perspective, there's also a number of different smart mobility opportunities. Automated middle mile and last mile vehicles, such as the autonomous delivery being trialed by Gatik and Loblaws. This autonomous fleet, which Gatik will operate, consists of 5 specially equipped Ford Transit 350 box trucks that have refrigeration units. And they're going to carry goods from Loblaws automated packing facility or picking facility to retail locations across the GTA. So something that's in play now, very exciting. The bottom right corner shows Tiny Mile. So Tiny Mile is a tech startup in Toronto. It's offering robo delivery for a flat fee of $4 delivery. There's 6 restaurants that are currently participating. There's demand for more as well. So when when there's a food delivery request, one of Tiny Mile's little robots is then driven remotely. It's driven by a human operator that's using a gaming console controller. They start from their centralized location, go to the restaurant to pick up the food, and then go finally to the customer. So one example of a robo delivery out there. There are others as well, and I expect that this is going to become more and more popular, especially as we've certainly seen an increase in parcel delivery through COVID. Drones are taking flight as well. They're taking flights within warehouses, taking flights for delivery. Amazon's been doing trials of that as well. Personally, and I haven't fact checked this, but I live in Mississauga, very close to the new Amazon warehouse. And I heard someplace that I might be able to get drone delivery. So that would be really cool. But the picture that's shown on the bottom left, it was a landmark flight that was made in October of this year. And so that drone made a very short journey. It was about 6 minutes, but it was a critical one. It went from Toronto Western Hospital to Toronto General Hospital, and it carried a pair of lungs that were critical for a transplant. It was the first organ delivery by drone around the world. And so really neat to see what drones are capable of. The other application for drones is really with regards to remote deliveries, where there might not be other possibilities for other modes of transportation to get to. Curbside management. So I think there's going to be a lot of play in the curb space, both from a passenger pickup and drop off, from a goods movement perspective. We're seeing more and more demand for the curb space. Whether it's robo delivery, whether it's pickup and drop off for shared mobility. There's all sorts of demands on the curb. Park and Load is one example of a mobile app that's out there. It's quite interesting. It allows vehicles making goods delivery or pickups to make reservations for commercial loading zones, and that reservation the dwell time of that reservation can be changed by factors such as EVs. During the pandemic timeframe, the city of Toronto relaxed their restrictions for pickups and drop-offs. But imagine if they were able to allow pickups and drop-offs done only by EVs to reduce noise in other times. So there's all sorts of really interesting things out there to help manage the curb. And last but not least is real-time operations management. So, it's very similar to me to some of the work that was done in traffic management systems and traveler information systems in the late 90s, early 2000s. Having an overall view of what's happening in your network, being able to see impacts, bottlenecks, and things like that is going to be really important. So the graphic in the top right is actually an image from Project 44. So they have an advanced transportation visibility model, and it provides visibility across the entire supply chain. So it connects all of the different pieces of the journey and allows you to see what's happening. The graphic in the bottom is actually from the Port of Hamilton. It's their vessel tracking system. I just discovered this recently. I think it's very cool. So kudos to you for having it out there. And so you can see graphically or in tabular format all of the ships that are inbound or outbound from the port, and it really gives you an interesting view of all of the activity that's happening there. So lots of really interesting things on the horizon. It's going to take us some work to be able to deploy these, to integrate them, to make them function as an entire ecosystem. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit about what are some of the enablers and what we can do to get there. The first thing I wanted to speak to quickly is one of the planning tools that's there, particularly if you're in the public sector. So this is a public sector CAV readiness guidelines. Susan Boot, who is speaking later this morning, was the lead agency on this particular project. We had a steering committee comprised of the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, City of Toronto, Region of Peel, Metrolinx, and WSP, and we all provided in-kind contributions or funding, and also submitted an application to Transport Canada and received some funding through their ACATS funding grants. And so this plan really was the first in its kind to take a look at what the public sector can do to start preparing for a future of connected and automated vehicles. So I wanted to just highlight a couple that are specifically focused around smart goods mobility. This project did look at goods movement, looked at transit, looked at personal movements, fleet movements, all sorts of things. So just to highlight a few, there's freight safety and regulations that are going to need to be looked at from an institutional readiness perspective, and from an operational readiness perspective, really taking a look at interregional and intra-regional is going to be an important part to that. Another planning tool that can be used is the Canadian ITS architecture. So this is a tool that helps agencies, could be public or private sector agencies, plan for system interoperability. It looks at data flows between different physical and functional elements within the systems that you're looking at, and it uses common terminology and supports agencies in identifying current and planned systems to deliver the required functions. So data visualization, machine learning, and data analytics are also going to be really important enablers. Machine learning enables processing of big data to create valuable insights, and then the data visualization allows you to view that data in a way that's really easy to understand. The graphic on the left is actually from Geotab. They're a telematics platform provider that uses analytics to help agencies understand big problems. And Mike Branch from Geotab is also speaking later today, so you'll learn more from him later. But basically, by using their telematics data and applying machine learning, Geotab is able to help clients really understand different problems and big problems. So, have you ever wondered where the goods go to that originate in Hamilton, where they end up? This graphic visually shows where heavy duty, light duty, medium duty trips can start and end. The graphic on the right is with some work done for the region of Peel, again using data analytics and then visualization to show where there's future supply chain hotspots. So again, understanding the problem is really critical in order to be able to find good solutions. And the last enabler I was going to talk about today is really digital twin. So digital twin is when real-time information is integrated into some of those analytics platforms. And that combination of real-time information and a number of other features creates a digital twin. So a digital twin is essentially a digital replica of a physical space, and typically includes things such as analytical models, data management, 3D visualization, real-time data processing, integration of sensors, algorithms, virtualized communication networks. So there's a whole lot of different pieces that go into it, and they really can help real-time operations. They can help optimize incidents. They could routing, help identify network fragility or single points of failure from a planning perspective as well. So I really think we're going to see a lot of digital twins in the future. So lots of enablers, lots of other things to be considered as well. I'm not going to go through all of the list here, just in the interest of time and, wanting to make sure that we have enough time for questions and answers. So happy to come back to any of these. But really, regional collaboration, public-private collaboration and coordination are going to be really critical pieces and things that need to be put in place in order to make this work. There's going to need to be a champion in order to create this future of smart goods mobility to ensure that all of the parties are talking together. And I'd really challenge you to think about whether that's your role or your agency's role. Cybersecurity is going to be an important piece that will need to be considered. And I will just touch on it quickly, but you may have heard that, a lot of these automated vehicles are electric. So how are we going to ensure that there's sufficient charging infrastructure for those EVs? How are we going to make sure that the power that feeds them is green? We're very fortunate in Ontario to have such high percentage of green energy in our grid, but that is something that we're going to need to think about long and hard as we move forward. So there are a lot of opportunities. There's an opportunity for a fully integrated supply chain with visibility across the entire supply chain. There's opportunities to enhance safety for drivers, for people working in different environments. We're going to have quicker turnarounds, going to have an efficient network, but there are some challenges and some things we need to figure out about it. How can we ensure that that this is safe for vulnerable road users? What's going to happen if you've got somebody walking down a sidewalk and there's a robo delivery? How can we make that safe? What can we do to make this equitable? How can we make sure that nobody gets left behind in this future with smart goods mobility? It's got to be affordable. It's got to be sustainable. Privacy and security are also key elements that need to be considered. So lots and lots of things to think about and lots of challenges, but I'm really confident that we've got the tools, the skills, the people in order to get to that future. So what's next? I wanted to leave you just with a couple things to think about. So technology is an enabler, but it's only going to give you a really good solution when you understand clearly that the problem is that you're trying to solve. So spend some time thinking about that. What are the challenges operationally? Where are things falling apart? What needs to be fixed, and how could technology support you? Are there existing systems you could leverage in order to find those solutions? I would suggest doing market scans or best practice reviews. Find out what other people are doing. Find out all of the different technologies that are out there in the market. Bring in some tech providers to really share information about what's happening. I think you need to pull together a strategic plan or a concept of operations. You need to think about some of these really big picture pieces in order to come up with a solution that's going to work for you. And last but not least, I really believe that public-private forums where people can get together, they can exchange information, they can collectively develop pilots So Avon is an example of this, but leveraging these types of opportunities to collectively work together to find a solution is going to be really important. And you know what? Give things a try. You're going to fail. If you're not failing, then you're not pushing the envelope enough. But then learn from that, try again, and eventually you're going to succeed and you're going to end up with a smart goods mobility future. So thanks very much for your time, Chris. I think you're going to join me and we're going to do some Q&A.
I am, and thanks so much, Mara, and thanks for doing such a stellar job with your construction in the background. I'm sure it'll be something you have a chuckle about afterwards and all that. But you brought up some really amazing points, and really, got us ranging over from shipping to rail to on-road vehicles, and I know. Some have asked about the links for the information that you've indicated, and someone's put those in the chat. But I also found it kind of interesting that you said that I guess there wasn't actually a definition for smart mobility, so you had to make up your own. And I was curious, are you aware of anyone working on a definition of smart mobility? Because we certainly chuck it around a lot.
Yeah, I haven't found a formal one from an agency. I really like mine, to be honest.
I do
But I
too.
guess I have a natural bias to that. But because I do think that it's a lofty goal, and
Mhm.
there are so many different pieces that I think we need to be mindful of as we're working through this future. I find there's a lot of confusion in the market between micro mobility and mobility on demand and mobility as a service. And to me, smart mobility encompasses all of those pieces, as well as, bringing in things like open data architectures
Mhm.
around tolling and pricing and all of those pieces. So to me, it really is kind of the overarching umbrella.
Yes, yeah, it makes an awful lot of sense, I think. Um, One thing, just as we kind of wait for some questions from the audience and that, I wanted to ask, because, I've heard, and I don't know if you have, but I'm likely believing you have some really better insights than most of us in this, is people talk about job loss from time to time. And, when we talk about all this autonomous technology, and of course you mentioned where the military had to help out with moving goods just simply because there were a lack of drivers. And I wonder, maybe you could share your personal perspective on how you see the jobs changing, and do you think there will be job losses related to this technology adoption?
That's a really good question, and I don't think anybody fully understands it. Certainly, in the work that we've seen with connected electric automated shuttles, and there's a couple trials that are underway in the GTA so far, Durham and the city of Toronto as examples. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. But there's a requirement to have a driver, or not a driver, but an operator on board, and that was something that came up through our CAV readiness plan as well. So we developed these scenarios and we developed personas to really test. If we had captured everything.
Mhm.
And, we had over a year of public sector involvement through over 70 agencies participating in that project. So it was a really great piece of work. But when we looked at what needed to be done from the different personas, the one that really caused us to think and to add some pieces to it was the child. So
Mm.
how are children going to interact with these connected and automated vehicles? And when you start thinking about it that way, you realize that a driver of a school bus, for example, is doing a lot more than driving. Whether we like it or not, they're also providing services in terms of caretaking for the children. So, I don't think we're ever going to get away from those types of roles. And with regards to commercial vehicles, we're seeing a shortage right now. There's not enough drivers to keep up with demand. From what the reading that I've done, that seems to be a key problem at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach.
Mhm.
And so I think these technologies are necessary to fill those gaps. And there's going to be a lot of other jobs created through a future with smart goods mobility. And I think it's going to be a net gain in terms of
Yeah.
jobs, not net loss.
Yeah, a lot of really good points you make there, and you're right. It's we don't know, but certainly it's going to change the nature of jobs, and as people will need new skills and be upskilled and all of that, we hope that we can use technology to be a net gain for everything we're doing. I just see a couple questions in the chat there, and let's just pull one up. Someone asks, what do you feel are the biggest challenges for regulators, government, and city planners for the next 10 or so years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot. One of the biggest nuts that I think we have to crack is really finding opportunities for collaborative work environments with public and private sector. I don't think that any one agency is going to be able to solve these problems on their own. You're going to require all levels of government to be working together to find solutions, and working together with the private sector as well to make that happen. I think that there's procurement challenges along the way. That's an area that public sector clients often struggle with. If they want to do a pilot, there's a really good technology out there. They want to do some testing. What are mechanisms for working together collaboratively to do that? So that's one of the areas. I think there's also going to need to be some thinking about where does the public sector need to play. So what's your stake in the game? What do you need to be part of to ensure that you have mechanisms for implementing policies? And backing off enough that there's opportunities for innovation from the private sector.
Yeah, good points. It's certainly a complex issue, and we need everyone talking about it for sure. Another question we have here, and I don't know if you have an answer for them, but maybe in your role in WSP, you have a pretty good oversight of what's going on. Someone asks, we face a climate crisis, and is really the climate part of your environmental scan as you look at transportation and connected and autonomous vehicles?
Well, I think the electric piece of the automated and connected vehicles will play a key role in that. Assuming we can find ways to service all of the demand and do that in a clean way. In Ontario, I think it's 97%, if I'm correct, of our energy is clean, coming from hydro generation or nuclear. I think that there's huge opportunities to help the climate crisis by moving to electric vehicles. So I see that electric, automated, connected, they all go together for me.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Let's see. We have another one here. Trying to get to our audience questions. Someone's asking about: do you think that old style LRT rails in the ground are going to be compatible with the rapidly advancing autonomous vehicles used for personal and commercial purposes? And maybe what's the role, or how will that be transitioned as part of that as well?
Well, I didn't dig in too deeply to the Rio Tinto example, but I'm pretty sure they were just running on the same gauge as before. That wasn't part of what needed to change. And so, I think the automation piece, when we did the CAV readiness plan, one of the questions we asked the public sector stakeholders was, how much do you see the public sector needing to adjust to what the private sector is doing? And, it was sort of, well, we kind of expect that the private sector is going to be building vehicles that operate on our roads. We recognize there's some things that we may need to do to ensure that, pavement markings are consistent or road signs are consistent, or, providing interfaces through roadside units or virtual roadside units to signal systems. But, at the end of the day, there isn't budget to substantially change all of the infrastructure in Canada. So, I think that technology is going to have to adapt to it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because trying to kind of change all of that infrastructure, you said the expense is it's unrealistic to expect that that's going to happen. And we will have periods where we have this technology being used with older technology, so we're going to have that for quite some period of time. Maybe just another point you had mentioned in your presentation, and I thought was an interesting one, was the whole notion of the whole curbside delivery and curbside management. And I wonder maybe if you just talk a little bit more about your thoughts of where that's going, and maybe where the communities need to start to be thinking in this area, because it's quite a bit different than anything we have going now.
Yeah, so, the 90s were big in the traffic management for highways. Compass was, which is the freeway traffic management or advanced traffic management system on the 400 series highways. It was the first one that used fiber back in the early 90s, and actually was the reason why I got interested in this whole field of smart mobility. But sorry, and I just totally forgot where I was going with that. Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. No, that's okay. We're covering a lot of ground here. With
I need another coffee.
Yes, I know that, and you're banging behind you, but
curbside management.
yes,
Yes, no.
exactly.
So I think the curb is the new highways. That's where I was going. Like, demand pricing, figuring out how to do reservations for parking, commercial loading zones. There's a lot of competing priorities right now. There's parkettes going in some places. If you take a look at what the City of Toronto and other agencies had to do as well through COVID for, changing how the curb functioned for pickups and drop-offs, restaurant pickups and stuff like that. They expanded spaces so there was more space for people to walk. I think technology is going to start to play a role in how we manage all of that. And, the whole interaction with the robo deliveries, I think it's going to be really interesting. So I see the curb as kind of the new frontier. I think that's where people need to be thinking about how they can manage them efficiently, how they can put policies and regulations and technology in place to really help manage demand there.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I loved your example of, because we tend to think in the slide you showed about some sidewalk delivery using drones and that, and some people might think, well, pizza delivery by robots may be a little frivolous or whatever, but it's coming. But you also mentioned the drone delivery of a vital organ. In a city where the congestion might really dramatically increase delivery time, and someone's life may depend on it. So I just I don't know if you have thoughts about the where we need to be talking that we're maybe not now, because boy, it's a whole other channel of delivery technology that we're looking at here.
Well, the transplant thing for me was really interesting as well. When it was a company out of Quebec that did it, and there's huge costs in organ transplants. You've got helicopter trips or flights to get these organs because they're time sensitive. And so imagine, what drones could do to reduce costs, reduce the environmental load, and all of those types of pieces. The other piece to me that's interesting about drones is that generally it's federal regulations around airspace. And so, where are we going to be comfortable with drones flying? Do we need to create drone corridors along the side of provincial highway networks? I don't know. I don't think we have a really clear picture about how drones are going to get fully integrated into the whole supply chain and transportation network, for that matter.
It's an interesting question. That's for sure. That's for
Mhm.
sure.
More
Well,
questions
yeah,
than answers at this point, Chris, but that to me is the fun
yes,
part.
exactly. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I am just we wrap up this session because you have much deeper insight into this area than most of us do. And I wonder, just in the closing thoughts, if you mused about what you feel maybe are the biggest barriers that we currently face in this area, and if you could wave a magic wand, what types of solutions would you hope we would be exploring to move forward on those barriers?
Hmm. Well, I do really think we need to have some very high level planning conversations. I'm a firm believer that until you understand the problems you're trying to solve, you can't really find good technology solutions. So I think, I'd love to see a roundtable with representatives from all different levels of government talking about this and collectively determining a future,
Hmm.
figuring out how you're going to create, uh, a marketplace, a digital marketplace for. Because I do really believe that the goods piece and the personal movement have to be looked at collectively, right?
Hmm.
Like, imagine if you had a package that needed to get from Wawa to Toronto. Well, if there's somebody that's traveling that already, as opposed to sending a courier, like imagine if you could connect those pieces, right? So
Hmm.
I think that, yeah, I think it's a matter of finding forums to sit down and talk about these things, and to make some practical decisions and commitments to everybody's role in the ecosystem.
Okay, great. Well, Mara, thank you so much for being with us today and really sharing your insights and helping us maybe stretch how we think about this space. There's certainly a lot to do there. Thanks so much again for being with us today.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for the opportunity. Have a
Great.
good day.